friends, my name is Millie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about all of the books that I read in the month of May. So I haven't done a monthly reading wrap up in a very long time. I feel like it's the last one I did January, maybe? That's a really long time. I'm very sorry. I don't know. Well, I do know why I haven't done a monthly reading wrap up. They take very long to film and I just haven't had the energy really to sit down and film a really long video talking about all the books I read. But I'm really in the mood for it today, so I'm really hoping that you will forgive me and you will watch this very long video, I'm sure, because I'm just feeling in a chatty mood, you know. I'm just feeling in the mood to chat about all the books I read because I had such a good reading month in May. I found 3 new favourites, 3 5-star reads, and I'm really excited about all the books I read in May and excited for all the books I'm going to read in June. Whether I stick to my June TBR is another question. Hopefully I will. Hopefully that video has gone up before this so you'll be able to see what's on my June TBR, but I'm excited for all those books, so I'm hoping that I will stick to it. I will preface this by saying I did not stick to my May TBR. I don't think I read a single book that was on my May TBR. I can't remember exactly what was on it, but I don't think any of the books that I've read in May were actually on my May TBR. So that's not good. I need to get better at sticking to TBRs, but that didn't happen this month. So let's just get right into the books that I read. I started off the month with reading Vilest Things by Chloe Gong. This is the sequel to Immortal Longings, which I gave 3 stars, I want to say. I love Chloe Gong. I absolutely adore These Violent Delights, and Foul Lady Fortune is one of my favourite books ever. I love that book so much, and I will read anything she writes, but Immortal Longings wasn't my favourite of hers. I feel like the magic system wasn't really working for me. Immortal Longings it's an urban fantasy, so it's set in a city, in Twin Cities actually, and it is a retelling of Antony and Cleopatra, but I don't really know anything about that, so I can't really say how well done of a retelling it is. I don't really know anything about Antony and Cleopatra, so retelling aside, I feel like the characters are done really well, but I didn't really like the magic system. In Immortal Longings, the magic system involves being able to jump into other people's bodies, and there's this whole trials situation going on for who can become, I think it's like the protector of the king or something. I can't remember. It didn't work for me like Foul Lady Fortune, These Violent Delights, her other books did. But I still wanted to carry on with the series, so I have now read Vilest Things, and I feel like I preferred this one to the first book actually. I feel like because I was a bit more to grips with the magic system, I could understand it a little bit better and wasn't as confused at times, and I really like the character work in this. I feel like the characters really stood out in this one compared to the first book for me, but it still wasn't my favourite of hers, and there's no announcement on when a sequel is coming out, although I feel like based on the ending there's definitely going to be another book in the series. I know she's got a different book, standalone maybe, coming out later this year called Coldwire. That looks fantastic, but I have no idea what's going on with this series, so I'm hoping there will be a sequel announced soon because otherwise I'm going to forget everything that's happened. But it was okay. I gave it 3.5 stars in the end. I then read Blood and Steel by Helen Shearer, and this was my first 5-star read of the month. This is the start to a romantasy series. I bought the whole series in one go without having read any of it, but I'm very glad that I did because I love this. So this is following Fia. Now, Fia is raised in a world where women are not allowed to carry weapons. There was a prophecy about 20 years ago, something like that, where it was foretold that if a woman wielded a blade, then the world would end, essentially. So since then, women have not been allowed to wield any weapons, any blades, and there is this whole army, basically, and within this army you have war swords who are like exceptional warriors, and there's only a few of them, and they have some sort of magic, I think. And there used to be female war swords, but after the prophecy, there's now only men. But Fia's dream is to become a war sword. She has been fated to die at the age of 27, so that's 3 years from the start of this book, and she is determined that she's going to become a war sword before she dies. It's her lifelong dream, and she basically knows that she can take any risks that she wants because she knows she's not going to die until she's 27. She is training in secret, she's got a secret dagger, and she has been training in secret with how to wield a blade, how to kill things, and one day the war swords come to Fesmar, where Fia lives, and she is determined to become a war sword. So she ends up kind of being mentored a little bit by Wilder, who is one of the war swords. And this is just so much fun. It was great. I loved Fia as a main character. I feel like she was so headstrong and determined, and I loved her enthusiasm. And there's also a really great sister relationship in here because her sister Ren is a healer, kind of like a herbalist, I want to say. And there's a really great relationship where they're both kind of discovering that even though they have different dreams, their dreams are still important. And I feel like that Helen Shearer wrote the sister relationship really, really well. I also loved the chemistry between Wilder and Fia. It was so good. And yeah, I just feel like this is such a well done romantasy. I was really addicted to it, and I can really see why this has been blowing up everywhere. I read this because I have Iron and Embers to read by Helen Shearer, which is the first book in a new series, and you can apparently read Iron and Embers without having read the first series, but because Iron and Embers is about Fia's sister, Ren, I feel like it would spoil all of the Legends of Fesmar series, so I knew I wanted to read this series first, and this series has actually been picked up for traditional publishing, but that's going to be years before all of the books are out, so I'm very glad that I just went and got the indie editions. Also, I just love these covers, and I just love an indie paperback. Like, they're so floppy, and I just love the way that they feel, so I'm very happy with buying all the books at once, and also with this series. I love it. I then read Homegrown Magic by Jamie Paxton and Rebecca Podos, and I gave that 3 stars. So this is a queer, cozy cottagecore fantasy, and I was apprehensive of reading it. I got it on NetGalley and it sounds like everything that I should like, but I've read a book from Jamie Paxton before, which I can't remember the name of, and I didn't really like that one, so I was apprehensive going into this, and I feel like I was apprehensive for the right reasons. I don't feel like I would continue with this author's works or with Rebecca Podos's works. It's very difficult because obviously I don't know which bits each of them wrote, but this just didn't really work for me. So this is about a warlock who is raised within this like obscenely wealthy family, and they know that their only path in life is to follow in their family's footsteps, and they really don't want to do that, so they flee in search of a better life, and they come across a plant witch who is trying to kind of save her town, I think it was, and it turns out that they were actually childhood friends, and so the plant witch invites the warlock to come and stay with her and to help her essentially in her mission. But the plant witch, all of her sort of dreams, I guess, have been stolen by this very wealthy family, so there's this kind of underlying secrets and stuff going on, and I just really struggled to connect to the characters, honestly. I was really struggling to stay invested. I feel like the characters were just very lacking, and I just wasn't invested in their goals or what they were doing. I just didn't really care all that much, which sounds really bad. And I have seen, I'm not Jewish, so I can't speak on it personally, but I have seen a lot of reviews saying that there is some kind of anti-Semitic themes going on, so bear that in mind if you're going to pick this up. But yeah, I just didn't really enjoy it. I then read Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker, and I gave this 4 stars. This is a horror book set during the COVID pandemic. So we start off with Cora and her sister. They are on the subway waiting for a train to arrive. Obviously the trains are a bit less reliable because of the pandemic, and right as the train is pulling in, Cora's sister is pushed onto the tracks and murdered. Obviously this completely traumatizes Korra, and a few months later she is working as a crime scene cleaner. She is kind of discovering that a lot of the crime scenes that she's going to, it's all Asian women. It's all Asian women who've been brutally murdered in horrific ways, and a lot of these crime scenes, bats are being left, which is interesting because when Korra's sister was murdered, the murderer, who Korra couldn't get a good look at, said bat eater as he killed her. So while all of that is going on, obviously there is a pandemic, and Korra has pretty severe OCD. It's never explicitly labelled as that, but she is terrified of germs. She is constantly cleaning, and to the point where she is hurting herself while cleaning herself, like taking extremely hot showers, washing her hands so badly, so severely that her skin is cracking. All of this, like, she is very, very concerned about this pandemic, obviously, and so she's trying to deal with all of that while also trying to cope with her grief and cope with the fact that her sister may have been killed by a serial killer. So this is very brutal, it's very honest, and I feel like it's a fantastic look at how Asian women and Asian people in general were treated during the COVID pandemic. I feel like the author analysed the COVID pandemic in a really horrifyingly realistic way in how it fueled racism towards Asian people, and at the same time she brings in this ghost story which was very gruesome. So it's kind of discussing the concept of hungry ghosts, which is part of, I think, Chinese folklore, and I'd never really read a book with hungry ghosts in before, so I found that really interesting. But as I said, this is extremely gory. I had to close the book at times to take a breather and just be like, okay, it's just words on a page, that's not actually happening. The author also did a really great job at character dynamics. So Korra is really in pain and you can feel it, but you can also feel the kind of safety and security that being with her friends, who are the other two crime scene cleaners, brings her. There's this real sense of dread throughout the story that's just like building up and building up, and when the kind of climax arrives, it's very brutal. It's very dark, and I did have a really good time with this, but it wasn't quite a 5-star read for me. But I do feel like this is quite an important book to read because of the perspective it just brings on the pandemic. I just also really struggle with reading books about the pandemic because obviously it's still very close, but yeah, a really good horror book. I then read A Palace Near the Wind by Ai Jiang, which is a science fantasy novella, and I'm not a lover of novellas or short stories. I really struggle with them. I really struggle if they're not part of a series that I'm already reading. I really struggle to connect to characters in a short story or novella because you just don't have hardly any time to actually get to know them. So I did give this 3 stars, but this is about the Feng people, who are sometimes called wind walkers, and it's a lot of elemental magic, which I really enjoy that. And it's about, so there's a princess who is to be a bride to another king, and it's a lot about kind of industrialization and the Windwalker people trying to stop the humans from destroying their culture and their life and their habitats and all of that kind of stuff. But I just didn't really know a lot of what was going on. I really struggled to stay focused on the book, and it's got really rich world building, and I just feel like this would have benefited from being a full-length novel. Like, I feel like you could have done so much with this world building and with the magic system and all of that if it had been a full-length novel, and I feel like it was a disservice to the concept and the world building for it to be such a short novella. But if you like novellas, you might like this. I'm just not a novella fan. I then read my favourite book of the month, which was Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. This is incredible. I gave this 5 stars. It's a 6-star read though. It is amazing. This is so good. This is originally a fanfiction, and I had never read the fanfiction that this was, but I can see how this was obviously inspired by the series that fanfiction was based on. I'm not going to say it because I don't like the author of that series, but this, I feel like, stands completely on its own as its own work, as its own self. Yeah, I just feel like it just stands on its own very well, and I am in love with it. So you are following Bryony, who is a princess, and at the start of this book, in the very first chapter, on the very first page, her brother dies, and her brother was kind of keeping the kingdom from being invaded, and when he died, the protective barrier fell, and so her kingdom was able to be invaded, and Bryony was captured and taken into slavery. So she ends up being sold at auction to her rival. And she originally was going to be sold to this horrible sleazy guy, but then Tovin, this guy, comes in with a higher offer or whatever it is and buys her instead. And obviously everyone else in her life, all of her friends, her family, they're all being sold as well. And I mean, obviously trigger warnings in here for things that would come with that. So there's torture, there is mention of sexual assault, and it is quite a dark romantasy, obviously because she is his property. But at the same time, there is this glimmer of hope running throughout. You have all of these flashbacks back to their school days, and you can really see how Bryony was starting to fall for her rival. You can see the banter that they had between them, and also you can see how the world was building up to this invasion happening and all of the politics that were going on in the background that maybe Bryony wasn't totally aware of, or sometimes noticed but never thought that it would end up the way that it did. And I really loved the scenes with Bryony and her brother. I feel like they were very sweet and really showed what kind of person that Bryony is. And there's a really interesting magic system in here where you have both heart magic and mind magic. So Bryony's kingdom deal with mind magic. They say that they've evolved to use that, whereas the other kingdom use heart magic. And now heart magic is powerful, but it can be used against other people, so you can drain other people's powers to boost your own, and that is really a big reason why all of Bryony's people have been taken into slavery, to be used as boosters. So Bryony is what's called she's the golden something, but I can't remember what, and that's because she has such a high level of magic that whoever owns her and uses her would become really powerful because of the boost that she would give them. So that is why she was really highly coveted, not only as the princess, but also for the level of magic that she could give a heart magic wielder. This was just fantastic. And this is also such a slow burn. So you have got hints of a romance, but they do not make any single move to act on it at all. Not even like holding hands or anything until like 50 pages, if that, from the end. And this is the start of a trilogy, so there's definitely going to be a lot more to come. And also the ending of this book, I can't believe I have to wait like over a year to read the next book after the ending. I'm so going to have to reread this, and will happily reread it ahead of the next book because I am obsessed. I'm addicted to it. It is so addictive to read, by the way. I just devoured this. If you have got your eye on this to come out in June or July, well, it says July on here, but I'm pretty sure it's a fairly June pick, you will not be disappointed. This is amazing. 6 stars. I then continued on with the Legends of Fesmar series with Vows and Ruins, and I didn't love this one as much as Blood and Steel. This was a 3.5 star read for me. This series is so bingeable, but yeah, I just unfortunately didn't like this installment as much as I liked Blood and Steel. However, I do feel like this was just really a build-up to the 3rd and 4th books, and especially after how this book ended, I am very, very intrigued to carry on reading this series and to find out what on earth is going on in the House of Commons, because the ending of this book, insane. I really enjoyed how the world expanded in this book. I really liked that we got to see some new kingdoms, meet some new characters, but also our favourite characters were on the journey with Wilder and Fia for this one, and I feel like that was such a good choice because we got such great character dynamics with that. However, there is so much going on in the world, so much looming over, like literally the fate of the world is hanging over Wilder and Fia, and they stop every 5 seconds to jump each other's bones. And I was like, this is getting a bit much, like you guys need to get your priorities straight, because literally the world could end and they're thinking it's more important to do each other. So just felt very repetitive because they kept deciding that they would get together and then sleeping with each other and then deciding that it was a terrible idea and they could never do it again and falling out and all of that, and then it would just repeat in a cycle. And it happened like 3, 4, 5 times, and I was just a bit like, guys, just make up your mind, just get together. The world is literally ending around you. There are more important things going on. So yeah, I really like this series, but this one just felt a little bit ridiculous to me. But after that ending, yeah, And sure, I need to carry on. I need to carry on with the series ASAP. I then read They Bloom at Night by Trang Tan Tran, and this was a 3.5 star read for me. This is a YA horror novel, and I've read the author's first book last year, I feel like it was. Whenever it came out, I read it on NetGalley. That one was called She Is a Haunting or something like that, and I really liked that one. I feel like that one was done really well, so I was very excited for this one. I don't feel like I enjoyed this one as much as I did her first book, but this is about an algae that has taken over somewhere in Louisiana, and so this whole swamp, whatever, is full of mutated wildlife, and this town has been flooded, and so at night there's all these creatures, and our main character Noon is stuck in this town with her mum because her dad and brother went missing when the flood or the algae or whatever it is first arose. So they're trying to find them, and Noon is pretty sure that they're dead and they're going to be part of this mutated wildlife, but her mum is determined to find them and rescue them. And so one day her mum is injured and Noon must continue on with this journey with the daughter of the guy who is blackmailing them or something like that. And Noon has all of these kinds of weird goings on that's kind of making her feel like she's part of the wildlife. So it's very intriguing. It was also very, very atmospheric. I really liked the setting. I really liked how the author wove nature and horror elements together. I feel like that was done very, very well. The imagery is very strong, and like with Bat Eater, I kept having to kind of like put my phone aside and just be like, it's not actually real. It's not actually happening. The words on a page. It's also got a bit of a coming of age element to it, which I really appreciated, but I just feel like the author was trying to pack too much into a short time. It's barely 300 pages, not even that. I think it was less than 300 pages long, and I just feel like it would have benefited from having another 50 to 100 pages just to develop everything properly and to give everything time to be paced well, and we could have spent a bit more time unpacking each element to the story. So not a bad book, but I just feel like it just wasn't long enough. I then read Holding the Reins and Training the Heart by Paisley Hope, which are the first and second books in the Silver Pines Ranch series. These are cowboy romances, and I love a cowboy romance. I love Elsie Silver. I love Lila Sage and the Rebel Blue Ranch series, so I was kind of craving a new cowboy romance series, and I've been seeing this one everywhere on TikTok. And I also knew that I had to read the books because I had a NetGalley arc of the third book, which is Riding something, and I was like, I've got to read the first and second books, obviously, before I read the third one. And I gave the first book, Holding the Reins, 3 stars, and the second book, Training the Heart, 3.5 stars. So the first book was following Nash and Cece, and I just feel like this needed another round of edits. There were so many typos, so many clunky bits of dialogue, and I didn't mind Cece as a main character, but Nash, I really did not like as a love interest. There was a lot of times when he was giving me the ick and I was like, bye. So this one I didn't really like. The second one, Training the Heart, I definitely preferred to the first book. This one at least did not have half as many typos and the dialogue felt a lot more natural. This one was about Ivy and Wade, so it is interconnected standalones about different characters from a family. So I love books like that, and I love that we did kind of get to see more of the other characters as well with this one. Some of the dialogue was a little bit cringe, and this one was very, very, very spicy, to the point where I was like, do these guys not have anything else to do with their time? Because, yeah, very spicy. And I feel like this was also just kind of a copy and paste of the first book. So the female main character has just gotten out of an abusive relationship. The male main character is like coming to her rescue and like beats up the other guy. And they start off by hiding their relationship from everyone else around them, even though there's no reason to. I'm just hoping that the third book doesn't have that kind of same dynamic. I'm hoping that the third book has a bit of difference. There's also a few lines in the second book that were literally copy and pasted from the first book. I was reading them and I was like, wait, am I actually reading a different book? Because that is literally copied and pasted. Other than that, I definitely preferred this one to Holding the Reins. I then read a book that I cannot believe I had not read before, and also when I was saying to people what I was reading, everyone was like, I thought you'd already read that book, but I hadn't. And that was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is the gorgeous Fairy Lit edition, which I know I'm on everyone's Rob list for, because everyone wants these editions and they are stunning. I unfortunately don't have the second and third books in the Fairy Lit editions, it's only the first one, but anyway, this is the start of a second series set within the world of Caraval. So Stephanie Garber's first series, Caraval, I loved, absolutely adored it. I read that 2 years ago, I want to say. I don't feel like it was last year, but it might have been, can't remember. And I've really been putting off reading the Once Upon a Broken Heart series because I just feel intimidated. I know that I'm going to love this series, but I kind of was just feeling like what if I didn't love it as much as everyone else does? And I just built it up in my head too much. This had also been on my yearly TBR list for 2 years, and I just kept putting it off. It was on my 5-star predictions videos and everything, and I was just like, okay, it's time to finally get around to reading this. I just need to bite the bullet, rip the band-aid off, just need to do it. So I finally read this and I gave it 4.5 stars. This was so dreamy. I love Stephanie Garber's writing style. She writes so beautifully and I just want to live in this world. The world building of Caraval and of this series is just so whimsical and lovely and magical, and just the exact kind of world building that I love. I really loved Jax and Evangeline. So to recap what this book is actually about, at the start of this book, Evangeline has had her heart broken. Her boyfriend, the love of her life, has decided he's going to get married to her stepsister instead, which obviously breaks her heart. So she goes in search of Jax, the Prince of Hearts, the Fate, who we were first introduced to in the Caraval series, which a lot of people say you don't have to read Caraval before reading this, but I feel like you do. I mean, you don't, there's not really any spoilers for Caraval in this, but in order to understand Jax, I feel like you do need to have read Caraval. Anyway, so she goes in search of Jax and he tells her that he will fix her problems if she owes him 3 kisses. Now, she can't kiss him because anyone he kisses dies. It's said that the only person who wouldn't die when he kisses him would be the love of his life, his true love. So he's done a lot of kissing in the past to try and find that, which has resulted in him getting a pretty bad reputation, as I'm sure you can imagine. So he is determined to help her, and she ends up being invited to the Magnificent North by characters that we meet in Caraval, and there is a prince there who is searching for his bride. So Evangeline becomes one of the potentials, and there's just this whole plot that unfolds, and it was so much fun. Jax and Evangeline are very interesting and work really well together despite being so different. Evangeline is lovely and quite naive and innocent, and she's so sweet. And Jax is obviously very mysterious and mischievous, and yeah, he was so funny. Yeah, I just can't wait to see where the story goes. I can't wait to see where the series goes, and I'm also really scared for the next book because of, I've heard that it's intense, so we'll see how long it takes me to get to that one. Hopefully not too long. I then read Roll for Love by MK England, which I gave 3 stars. This is a YA contemporary about 2 girls who love playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it was very sweet, it was cute, but I don't really know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, and there was a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in this. I just don't really feel like I want to do the research that is required for me to be able to understand a lot that was discussed in this book. So if you like Dungeons and Dragons, you might really like this book because you wouldn't have to do any research to understand a lot of what was going on. It was very wholesome. It's a love letter to queer kids everywhere, and it's very sweet. I feel like it would be perfect for reading during Pride Month. Just wasn't really necessarily for me. I then read In the Weeds by B.K. Borison, which is the second book in the Love Light series. So the first book is Love Light Farms, which is a Christmas romance. This is more of a spring romance, and I'm hoping to read the rest of the Love Light series this year as well, so reading Mixed Signals during summer and then Business Casual in the autumn, because they just suit their seasons so well, and this is such a perfect spring book. This would have been 5 stars if there hadn't been a third act breakup. I feel like the third act breakup is just so unnecessary sometimes, and this didn't need it. But anyway, this is about Evelyn, who we meet in Love Light, and also Beckett, who obviously we also meet in Love Light Farms, and they met a few months ago, had a 1-night stand or 2-night stand or whatever it was, and then Evelyn left without saying anything, but then she ends up coming back in Love Light Farms. She's kind of promoting the farm for the characters in that, and they realise who each other is, all of that. And at the start of this book, Evelyn is just feeling very lost. She's not really enjoying what she's doing anymore as a social media influencer, and she realises that the last place that she felt like herself was at Love Light Farms, so she decides to go back there and to kind of help out the town. She ends up living in Beckett's house for whatever reason, because there's nowhere to stay in the town. suspiciously because these townspeople are so funny. They are up in everyone's business and it is hilarious. Yeah, so there's supposedly nowhere to stay in town, so she's staying at Beckett's, and it's just a gorgeous love story. It's so sweet. They are adorable together. I love them. And this book really is about these two characters are really trying to find their happy. That's like their goals for every single day. It's what they say to each other, we're going to find our happy today and whatever. And this book is just so cute and happy, and it made me so happy, and I just loved it. Like, they are so sweet together. I love the small town setting and everyone being so nosy. I love that we got to see more of Stella and Luca from Love Like Farms, and I'm very, very excited for the next book. I then read A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, which is the second book in the Ember in the Ashes series, or the Ember Quartet. So in An Ember in the Ashes, it's a martial fantasy inspired by ancient Rome. You are following Leia and Elias. There's this whole rebel movement and it's fantastic. It was brutal. I loved it. Made it onto my favourite books of last year. This one I gave 4 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star read for me. I loved how we got so much more of Helene in this book. I feel like she stood out so much to me, but I feel like Leia and Elias kind of fell a little bit by the wayside, and that is why I gave this a slightly lower rating, just because I didn't feel as enamoured with their characters as I wanted to be from the first book. But I loved Helene. I thought she was fantastic in this. This really expands the world building. It really expands the magic system as well. There's so many things that happen in here that it's just insane, and I'm so scared for the next 2 books in this series. I am terrified. I feel like I'm gonna cry so badly, and there was a scene in this where there's actually 2 scenes in this where I was nearly on the verge of tears reading them because they are so brutal. Sabaa Tahir does not hold back with her characters. Like, she puts them through their paces, and it's almost mean, but it's brilliant at the same time. Like, you feel so much for these characters, and I just wanted to help them. I wanted to help Helene. I wanted to help Leia and Elias, but see, I can't. There's so much action, so much adventure. I was stressed. Brilliant. Very excited for the next book. I then read Meet Me at Midnight by Brianna Bourne, which didn't love. Gave this 3 stars. This is it a magical realism, kind of a sci-fi YA contemporary book? I don't really know how to explain it. You're basically following this character who, in her dreams every night, she keeps seeing this boy in her dreams, and it always happens at midnight. The dreams are only a minute long, from midnight to 1 past midnight, and she keeps seeing this boy and she feels like she knows him, but she doesn't know him in real life. She doesn't know him when she's awake. Her sister is also in a coma, which seems random until you understand more of the story, but it is a kind of important plot point, so I'll mention that. Her sister is in a coma and she's just dealing with a lot, so these dreams are kind of her escape from real life. But there's this whole thing in this world, it is our world, but there's this whole thing going on where there's this company who are offering memory erasures. The point of these is if you've been through something traumatic, like someone really close to you has died, or you've been through a really bad breakup, or I don't know, whatever, you can get your memory erased so that you don't have to deal with those feelings anymore if you can't move past it. They normally don't offer it to under 18-year-olds though, so when our main character figures out that she has had a memory erasure of her relationship with this boy, she doesn't understand how that's possible because she's not 18. The company would not have offered it to her. So there's this whole kind of mystery thing going on. She keeps getting flashbacks as well as to why she got this memory erasure, because she can't imagine ever falling out of love with this boy, neither can he falling out of love with her. I just didn't feel this kind of like intense chemistry between the 2 main characters that there was supposed to be. Like, they kept saying, oh, there's so much chemistry between us, and we're just so in love and all of that, and I was just like, I do not feel this, guys. Like, that ain't happening. I wanted to know what happened, but I just wasn't really invested in the characters. Not my favourite. I then read Air of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray, which I gave 4 stars. This was so much fun. This is a very fast-paced YA fantasy, and this involves a lot of elemental magic. So our main character Blaze, when she was born, a storm shook the world. So a storm arrived when she was born and killed thousands of people, and she was actually born into a family of fire wielders, but she wields rain. She is what's known as a rain singer, and the rain singers haven't been seen for years, decades, so she's known as the last rain singer. And it's very unusual for someone to be born into a family with completely different powers. So she's got all of that going on. Her twin brother is a fire wielder. He's very powerful as well. He brings great banter to this story, but there is this whole choosing right, I think it's called, where the leaders of these elemental kingdoms are chosen every 25 years or so that there's always fresh faces, always fresh powers, no one's like, you know, becoming tyrannical or whatever. And it's the most powerful heirs are chosen to compete for the chance to become the rulers. So there's 4 from each elemental state, so 16 in total, and Blaze is chosen unexpectedly. She is very surprised at this because she hasn't had any powers since the day she was born. The most she's been able to summon is a drizzle, but she eventually realises through all these different trials and stuff, like where her magic has gone, and there's this whole expanded thing going on of this tyrannical ruler from a few years ago who has sort of stolen all these things, and it's very, very good. It was very fast paced, it was very fun, I had a really good time. I really liked Blaze as a main character. I liked how she was kind of a reluctant heroine. She really did not want to be an heir, she really did not want to have powers. She was very happy staying with her grandmother and not participating in life because she was so ashamed of this storm that had killed thousands of people, and everyone is really horrible to her for it, even though she was literally a newborn baby. There's these 2 princes who are kind of waiting in the wings. There's kind of romantic elements going on. It's very fun. I feel like if you like Powerless or Throne of Glass, those kinds of classic YA fantasy series, I mean Throne of Glass obviously then became adult, but it was originally a YA fantasy series, then I feel like you would really like Air of Storms. It was very good. I would really recommend it. I then reread Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood ahead of reading Problematic Summer Romance. This still hits, this still slaps. This was a 5-star read for me when I first read it. Last year actually, I read it during a 24-hour romance readathon. You can go and watch if you want to hear my full thoughts on this, but I loved this book. And then I read Problematic Summer Romance, which was incredible. This was a 6-star read for me, and this actually took the cake as my favourite Ali Hazelwood book. Love Theoretically has been my favourite Ali Hazelwood book for years, and Deep End came very, very close to knocking it off that top spot, but this was my favourite Ali Hazelwood book. This is so good. So this is actually an age gap romance between Maya, who is Eli's sister, and Connor, who is Eli's best friend, and they are at a destination wedding for Rue and Eli from Not in Love. It's in Italy, in Sicily. The setting is gorgeous, the imagery is amazing, and they're Maya's not really fighting her feelings, Connor's fighting his feelings. There is a lot of discussion about the efficacy of their falling in love, all of that sort of stuff, but the chemistry between them is off the charts. The dialogue as well is fantastic between all the characters. Ali Hazelwood writes friendships and banter brilliantly, like they feel like such real people, and this is just so good. Like, I just love Maya and Connor. I just think they are adorable. They are so sweet, and Connor is the book boyfriend. Like, he is the book boyfriend. You get flashbacks to their past, so they've kind of, since 3 years ago, Connor hasn't really paid any attention to Maya since before 3 years ago. So when she was 20, she was studying in Edinburgh, and she has this whole issue with an ex-boyfriend, and she tries to call Eli but gets put through to Connor instead because Eli's on a flight to Australia, and Connor hasn't really paid any attention to her before that point. He thought she was still like 13 years old, and they kind of just strike up a friendship, and you get to kind of see flashbacks to their conversations. They have a lot of phone calls over the years, and Eli has no idea about any of this, and it is just, the tension and the chemistry between them is so good, and I just love them. I love Connor, I love Maya, I love Ali Hazelwood. I feel like we would be really good friends, me and Ali Hazelwood. Brilliant. I then read Swept Away by Beth O'Leary, and I gave this 3 stars. This, I was expecting it to be a lot more romantic than it was. So you're basically following 2 people who have a one-night stand on a houseboat, and then the houseboat is swept out to sea. So they end up lost at sea for well over a week, and it's really more of a survival story. There is a lot of near misses that happen, accidents. They're trying to obviously keep this boat afloat. They end up there's a seagull that's injured, and they're trying to feed the seagull, but they have no food, and it's a whole story of survival, and it wasn't bad. There is a plot twist that happens with about 100 pages left, and I was not expecting that plot twist at all. The story does not end when they get back home. It really kind of expands a lot from there, but it just wasn't, I don't know if it just wasn't exactly what I was hoping it to be. I've read one book from Beth O'Leary before, I've read The Flatshare, and everyone else seems to love that book, but I just didn't really love it. So I was really hopeful that Swept Away, her latest release, would be different for me, but it wasn't. I have one other book from her to read, which is The Switch, which is down there, and I probably will still read that one, but if I don't enjoy that one, it might be that I don't read any more Beth O'Leary books. We'll see. I just didn't love Swept Away. And the final book I read in May was The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. This is a romantasy book, and this was a Fairy Loot pick from July 2024, so I've had it for nearly a year. This is actually the first romantasy book of Fairy Loots that I've read, which is really bad. Like, I've gotten over a year of Fairy Loot romantasy books. I haven't read any of them. Need to fix that. But anyway, I picked this one up. This was on my 25 books to read in 2025, so I was quite excited for this one. I felt like it was going to be one that I was going to love, but I gave it 3 stars. This is kind of an urban fantasy. It's set in a world where, it's set in our world, but monsters have appeared. I can't remember how long ago it was, maybe just under 20 years ago. Monsters appeared in the world, so vampires, werewolves, wraiths, trolls, sirens, all sorts of monsters appeared, and there was this whole war that happened, and now we are 3 years on from the end of the war where a treaty was signed. So this monster treaty was signed where monsters are not allowed to kill humans unless humans encroach on their territory. Then it's free game. Don't really feel like the treaty is really in favour of humans, but anyway. So our main character is a thief. So she is assigned to go into this house and steal a diamond ring, and she doesn't know whether the owner is a human who is away or if they're a monster. So she goes into the house, she can't find any alarm system, which should have been her first point of alarm, really. She goes into this house, there's no alarm system, she relatively easily steals the ring, and then this voice from across the library says, "What do you think you're doing?" And she realises she's in the house with a monster. But she can't work out what kind of monster he is because he appears to have magic. Monsters have this whole motto where it's monsters, not magic, and she kind of realises that there's this whole kind of secret world that's been hiding behind the monsters and letting the monsters kind of be the forefront so that they can stay in the shadows. And there is a whole plotline going on when she's trying to rescue somebody, and this monster basically recruits her to steal something for him, but his requirements is that she lives in his house, and he trains her because he thinks that she is the same thing as him. Because it turns out that he had wards up around the house and she should not have been able to get in, so how did she get through the wards if she's just a mere human? There's this whole kind of uncovering what she is and uncovering her magic, and I really enjoyed that. Just feel like it just didn't really do anything special for me. I felt a little bit bored a lot of the time. I don't feel like this really stands out from other fantasy or romantasy books I've read. It just wasn't a standout read to me, and there was a lot of just discussions going on, and I just felt a bit like, can we just get to the action? The action doesn't even really start until really near the end, and I just felt a bit like, what are we doing here? I mean, obviously it's building up for the rest of the series, but I don't feel like I will continue with the series. I didn't really like the male main character, Graves, either. He just felt, I understand that's kind of his personality, but he felt very closed off and very bland. He just felt very boring, and I was just like, what are you doing here? It's like, just go find someone else. So, not my favourite. I probably won't continue with the series, but I'm glad I finally read something from the Fairy Loot Romantasy subscription, and that I've got another book crossed off with my 2025 TBR. So those were all the books I read in the month of May. I feel like I did have a really good reading month, even if I did end it on kind of a lower note with The Wren in the Holly Library. I obviously found some brand new favourites. Please read Problematic Summer Romance, it's so good. But yeah, I obviously found some brand new favourites, and I am really excited for what I'm going to read in June. So if you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them, or let me know what your favourite book of May was. Mine was Rose in Chains, very closely followed by Problematic Summer Romance. Very closely followed. If you'd like to follow me on my Goodreads or my Bookstagram, the links will be down in the description below. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!